Hello, here we go again. The first day of Ramadan and the first of, inshallah, 30 videos that will hopefully help you to unplug your mind. So today I will start by describing somewhat what it means to be plugged in, because that's the problem. We are plugged in and accepting things that we might not want to accept. Anyway, so what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of your life? You should think about that, okay? Now, in pretty much the whole world right now, and it's been like that for quite a while, your purpose, according to the systemic indoctrination, is for you to be a well-behaved salary slave. Okay? What does that actually mean? Okay, this is like it. All right. What you look at your life, of course, you know, we got men and women of all ages. We got people of different colors, yeah, ethnic backgrounds and what have you. But the fact is, we are all the same, really, because pretty much every single person on this planet will go to kindergarten, where they are learning something that's gonna prepare them for school, primary school, secondary school. After secondary school, you probably go to some kind of college education, bachelor degree, master degree, and so forth. All right. And then you spend close to somewhere between 15 to 20 years of your life already. 15 to 20 years of your life you spend on preparing yourself to get a job. Okay? Now, there's different problems with that. Okay? One of the problems is that you might be spending 15 years, meaning 12 years in a school, maybe 4 years for a bachelor degree, so 15, 16 years. All right, and another, you know, who knows how many years when you take a master degree. So let's say 16. All right, so you spend 16 years. You got your nice college degree, piece of paper that you spent. You might even have, if some countries, they give you student loans and all kinds of stuff, all right? Even your parents might help you, but many millions of people graduated with a student loan that would take them even up to the rest of their life to pay back, just to have that piece of paper. And then you will find, if you know 7-Eleven, that's a chain of convenience stores, you know, in many countries. You can go to 7-Eleven, and the person behind the counter that's, you know, checking your soda price and whatnot, and, you know, giving you your change, he has a master degree or a PhD. You can even find it, yes. It's not as common to find somebody with a PhD, but you can certainly find people who have a college degree and or a master degree. Standing there, that's their job. They spent a lot of money and 16 years of their life to stand behind the counter in a 7-Eleven, in a KFC, or all these kind of places where to actually get the job there, you wouldn't even need, you barely need a high school diploma in the first place, all right? Even though they might require you, if you want to get the job, to have a high school diploma. The fact is, you can almost teach a monkey to do this job, all right? Yeah, so think about that. Yeah, okay, so that's a lot of people. I met people with IT degrees who are working in some other field. I know people who are engineers and now they are working in some kind of retail management situation. I guarantee you, worldwide, at least 50% of the millions of college graduates are not working in the field that they are trained or educated in at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like 75 to 80%. But it's hard to find those statistics because it's not something that the systemic indoctrination influences wants us to know about. Education is a big business. It's one of the biggest, actually. All right, it's that you can take pharmaceutical industry, you can take the war industry, you can take the food industry, you can take the education industry. We are talking about the 4 or 5 of the main industries in the world, and education is among those. They are not looking for your interests, okay? They don't care about you or your happiness or your health or anyone else. They just want you, number one, to get a job so you can make money, making something, and that money you spend. You spend the money. They will make sure that what you make and what you spend, if it's not about the same, it might even be you spend more money than you actually have. That's why you can get a loan, you can get, a mortgage on your house or your car or whatever, like any kind of property. You can borrow money so you can spend something, and then they can control you, and it's a high stressful situation. So that's basically how your life is gonna be. And then even those people who do go to college, graduate, and then get, if they have an engineering degree, they become engineers. Some people do that, 25%. Let's just be optimistic. Excuse me. And then what still happens is that they are working as engineers, they train as engineers, and then they still spend from 22, 23 years old until they're 65. It's different from country to country when you would be retiring, but you're spending about 40 years working for someone else who is profiting off you. They actually make money on you, okay? So you might get, depending on what country you're in, you might get, let's say you're getting, as an engineer, $80,000-$90,000 a year dollars in USA, for example. Not those high-level ones that is the elite kind of jobs, but just a basic one. So the $80,000-$90,000 a year. All right, that's what you get from your job. But that company that you're working for, they might make $300,000 to $500,000 of what you do. So you get like a small share of what you're worth for that company. And then, you can't make this up really. This is like, it's insane. Because the thing is, that company has no loyalty to you. They want you to have loyalty to them. Any kind of thing that you do, right? They have you, they got you down, and basically will punish you for anything that is not according to what they want you to be or to do. But if that company feels like, hey, you know what, we prefer this other guy to do the job, so you're fired. Boom. You can just be fired at any point in time, even if you do your job and even if you pull your worth, meaning if you're getting $90,000 a year, then if the company is making $180,000 from what you're doing, and so that means that they have a profit out of having you as a worker. What happens is, if they expect, instead of $180,000, which is like 100% profit off the cost of having you, for example, Maybe they expect to have 360,000, which is 300%. So that means that they're going to go start looking for an engineer that can give them 360,000 a year from his productivity. And then you're not worth enough. And the fact is, you'll be out the door like that, basically. All right? And then, if you are lucky and you have some kind of pension, you can't really live off your pension because those pensions never actually amount to what you expect after spending your money for 40 years. You're putting 10, 15, 20% off your paycheck to pay for that. But the fact is, you got to remember that, let's say you are 60 years old, or, okay, let's say 65 when you retire, okay? Now, the thing is, because of inflation and all of these other things, by the time that you retire, your pension might give you half of what you need if you're lucky. All right? You got to think about that. And some people don't even have a pension. All right, so you see, and how much time do you have that you have to have a half what you need is 20, 30 years. So that you're working, you spend 16 years plus 40 years on average, so that's 56 years of your life. And since most people they don't live to be 100, that's, you know, uncommon. So that means that more than half your life, right? More than half your life, all right? Maybe more like 2/3, depending on how old you get. So let's say 2/3 of your life you're spending working, studying, and then in the end, that last part that's left, left after they got what they wanted from you, what do? You're old, you're probably not in very good health because you're too busy working and, you know, maybe even in a job that will give you bad back, bad knees, or other kind, because the fact is most of the problems that people have is due to work-related problems, to stress, and pretty much can be anything, all right? So you have the rest of your life to, you know, basically be not very healthy, not very happy, because, well, you know, your children, if you have any, and grandchildren, they don't really have time for you because they're so busy following in your footsteps, being another salary slave. So, point is, right here, that you've got to think about what you want to do with your life, all right? Are you going to be a salary slave for life, which is 99% of everybody, basically? That would be like that, unless you live in one of those countries where you basically succumb to devastating climate changes and, you know, all kinds of problems that causes poverty and so on. And, you know, you might not even survive your teen years in some of those countries. But if you're living in industrialized world, it can be Europe, Africa, Asia, anywhere, you will be following this pattern. And you will be trained and indoctrinated from kindergarten. So let's go back to that one for a second. Your schooling. And this is why I wouldn't dream. I couldn't do that to my own children. I couldn't tell them, you go to school, get brainwashed in school, so you can be one of those, you know, zombies, right? Who just do whatever, you know, society tells them to do to be a good salary slave. No, what happens is there are different ways, and there are people who are better than me at explaining that. So about the whole schooling thing, I recommend you. He passed away some years ago, but his work is still around. You can check him on YouTube, for example, and there are other people who is connected with him, who actually still follows up on these things, because he was, of course, not the only person in the world who realized what's going on with the education system. His name is John Taylor Gatto. John Taylor Gatto. Okay? Anyway, if you watch some of his talks especially some of his latest talks before he passed on. It will blow your mind, and you realize how bad this is. Anyway, let me just narrow it down a little bit. In kindergarten, they teach you the manners you need to survive in a school classroom. Basically, that's the first thing they do. They start to put you into this. Now, kids, we are all going to paint or draw something, right? So, they have you all in a group. And it's interesting how, even though people evolve, they've developed differently mentally, maturity, and otherwise, physically even, right? So that means that you can have a child who is 4 years old who is on the level of another child who is 6 or 7, right? And vice versa. But still, if you go to a kindergarten, you will have them, all the 4 years old will be in this group, all the 5 years old will be in this group. And why is that? Because it's more easy for them to control them based on that. Because otherwise they have to start giving you evaluations and all of that stuff, which they do in some very fancy places, even fancy kindergartens. All right, so first grade, you go to school, first grade. You sit in a classroom, organized classroom, and you can almost see, if you Google classroom photos, you will see that almost worldwide they are pretty identical. They have a certain structure. Maybe the tables, you can find places where they are in a horseshoe formation, and some they're just sitting in a couple of rows and so on, but they are so identical. But anyway, you are there. Maybe you have a mixed gender, like you have girls and boys in one class, but you will see that they're all 6 years old, 6 or 7, because of course they don't have the birthday at the same time, but the school is starting at a particular time. So you can have like a range from 6 to 7, all right? And then you go to the second grade and they will have similar, same age. And you will follow that along throughout the schooling, and few kids might be held back a grade or 2, because mentally they can't keep up. These things happen. But the point is, when you go to school, they put you in a very structured environment, and they feed you a very structured curriculum. And this curriculum is designed to get a specific response in your development, okay? And it teaches you to be obedient, okay? And no problem with obedience as such, but obedience to society and to authority, okay? They basically teach you to be afraid of being disobedient, because if you don't follow along, you'll get punished in some way. Go to the principal's office, this and that. And of course there are, children, students in school who are out of order and like really disruptive. But often the fact is that they are disruptive is just a sign of creativity, non-conformity, and so on. All right, so that's a problem, okay? So when you have finished school, for example, think about this. You studied 12 years maybe, all right. How many of those things can you even remember after 12 years? How much from of course, your reading skills get improved, your math skills get improved. Okay, but I tell you one thing: there are people who study math in, last year of high school. Some of the things that they learned, like in the 5th or 6th grade, if you let them test again, they even forgot it. Okay, and then not just that. After 5 years of after you graduate from high school, 5 to 10 years later, you might be lucky to remember 5% of what you learned. that kind of education does not work. And the purpose is not for it to be something useful. It is something that basically, they don't care whether you can remember anything really, like history, geography, all of those things, you know, unless you will become a teacher, obviously, then there's a use in remembering those things. But the fact is, for you to use that later, there's no purpose. Its only purpose is for you to be trained in accepting a certain set of information, accepting it as the truth without any kind of argumentation or any kind of questioning, because you know they have all of these tests where you have to give the answer, the right answer, the way they want. That's the whole purpose of school, is to train you to accept information that they process. They feed you with this information, and you'll be tested. And if you don't accept the truth the way they present it, you will fail, because then you don't give the answers the way they want the answers. All right? Every test is standardized. There's nothing standard about human beings other than the fact that, you know, we probably all need oxygen to survive, and some water and some food. But other than that, you know, really, we are so different that you can't put 20 to 30 students in one class for 12 years without eroding all of the differences to make them into what you want, an obedient worker. Okay? Yeah. So that's basically what they do. All right? Yes. Homeschool. If you have children, homeschool them. All right? You might, oh, by the way, I forgot, I wanted to mention one thing. The 12 years of school, what you can learn, okay, in those 12 years of useful information like geography, you know, history, what happened, who was Napoleon, who was Genghis Khan, or, you know, what kind of lifestyle do they have in Nigeria or some other place now. Yeah, there is some interesting facts that you can learn in 12 years, but the thing is, learning how to read doesn't take a year. Even learning how to read on a proficient level doesn't take a year. All right? The math skills that most people, 99% of people would ever need in their life, you can learn within a year. Yes. The language skills that you need, you can learn, guess what? Within a year. All right? Pretty much everything you learn in school, at the end of it, if it was presented the right way, and if you were not being so busy trying to fit in, right? Each subject you can learn in a year. Some people might take 2 years, sure, okay, because of course there is, you know, like for example, if you are an English speaker and reader, then yeah, it's a big vocabulary, certainly, and you know, maybe remembering every word, it's going to take a little bit more than a year, obviously. But the thing is, we have things such as dictionaries and thesauruses and stuff like that. So what you really need to be able to read takes about a year. Then you start reading, and then once in a while you can come across a difficult word that you haven't seen before. What do? You check the dictionary or thesaurus or whatever to understand the meaning or the context or whatever, right? Okay, let's say you have 10 subjects in school and you want to learn it, and one subject takes a year. So maybe you're taking 3 subjects at the same time, because you see, if you're taking all 10 subjects, you can't focus on anything really, which is one of the reasons why it takes so long time. And also it makes it easier for the school system to control and adapt you, or make you adapt to what they want. So let's say you have 10, you're doing 3 at a time. All right, let's just say 2. So make it really, you can be really, really good within a year if you're just focusing on reading and writing. Just those two. And when I say writing, it's not just the spelling of words, but to make proper sentences, articulate yourself in writing and so forth. Meaning, really writing, okay? And reading, of course, to take an adult book, like something that an adult person would read, like a book on time management or other kind of thing that could be useful for some people, right? Now, you can teach a child, okay, as long as the child can speak, okay, properly, articulate well, then you can teach that child within a year to read what an adult would read, a book like that. A year, yes. Because you would be focusing on that. You wouldn't be focusing on 10 different subjects. All right, so let's say that. Let's say that. All right. And the fact is, you could teach that child within that year to reading on the level of somebody in 12th grade, in high school, senior high. You can teach it within 1 year, all right? Now, just to make it easy, then, you know, because it can be boring to look at certain things too focused. So let's just say we're doing 3 or 4 subjects and we're slowing it down a little bit, so now it takes 2 years to finish 4 subjects. Now we got 10 subjects, so that's 4 subjects in 2 years. We got another 4 in 2 years, so now we got 4 years. So let's say the last 2 we just focus on that, because now there is some kind of discipline, you know, self-discipline with the students, so he can sit down without getting too bored on the 5th year. So basically, the 12 years education you can push down to 4 to 5 years. And yeah, that's for the average child. You have a really clever child that maybe know how to express itself and explore and all of these things that most parents don't let their children do. Yes, that child might take 3 years to do the same thing as most children would do in 5 years. But still, 3 to 5 years compared to 12 years. What is the story behind this? What is the idea behind this? If you can do it in that time, why would you want to put it through in 12 years? I'll tell you one reason. One of those reasons is because if you don't start the child around 4 or 5 years in kindergarten to prepare for this, you can't control the child as much. It's easier to brainwash a child to know what you wanted to know or think the way you wanted to think if you start around that age. Okay? Now, then, if you say, okay, let me do that, and then I follow the way I'm explaining, 4 or 5 years, right? The problem is that that child will not be old enough to work yet. So after you have taught it all those things, right, you have another 7 years that you have to find a way to control the child, because now the child is a teenager, and teenagers are rebellious. Okay, so what do? No, you just extend it to 12. So by the time that you are finished with molding them, brainwashing them, indoctrinating them, by that time they're ready to go to some work or to college where you can further their indoctrination and brainwash. That's the reason why you don't want to do that. You could also say, hey, wait, why don't we just wait until later? So if we say 5 years, so we don't start them at 5 years old or 4, whatever they are in kindergarten. We start them, let's see, if you're going to college when you're 18, 19 years old, so maybe you're about 13 years old. You start them at 13, then you can just pop them in the school, and then when they're finished with the school 5 years, then you send them straight to college. The problem is that if you don't have those first 6, 7 years from kindergarten to maybe 6, 7 grade, that time that they would normally be in that, right? If you don't have them there, they evolve to be more individualistic, they be more creative, they're going to be more critical of what you're presenting them, and then they are harder to mold. Okay, they're not harder to teach. That's the thing. Okay, they're not harder to teach. They're not harder to help them to get their own personality, get their own understanding, and develop their intelligence. That's not harder. It's harder to indoctrinate. It's harder to brainwash, and so on and so on. That's the whole point in having those extended time of learning things that shouldn't take more than 5 years. All right? That's just the way it is. It's all planned out properly, so we know how children are, we know how teenagers are, we know how young adults are, and so on. It's all part of that system. So the only way is to homeschool. There's no other way. Okay? There are some private schools who maybe not to the same extent mold and indoctrinate and brainwash children. There are some, and you will see most of the elite, those people who got a lot of money, they put their children in those schools because they know what happens in public schools and other schools that are on the same system as a public school. Those very expensive, you know, which is only, you know, affordable for the elite. That's how it is. Homeschool is the only way you can do it. All right? So, you were probably not homeschooled. What you did was you probably went through the same system that I'm talking about, and because of that, you buy into that system. You accept it because everyone around you is accepting this. They're accepting that this is the way, that's the deal, right? So what do? You put your children in the same system, and they put their children in the same system. The fact is, you're prepared not just to be a worker, you're prepared to be a consumer, all right? Because it's a lot about, you know, preparing you for that part of the capitalist system. Okay, capitalist, I wouldn't say capitalist, it's consumer system, because that's what it is, we consume, and it's all about that. And I could go on for, I could be talking until tomorrow morning. This is morning now in Kenya, it's 7:15 in the morning. And I could talk until tomorrow, 7:15, without non-stop, just talking about how this is really a consumer system where we think we are consuming, and technically we are in a way, but we are also being consumed. Okay, because we are letting our time being consumed by all of the things that we buy, because we buy things that we spend time on, whether it's you know, PlayStations, or whether it's you know, your handphone, you're sitting there looking at TikTok videos, all kind of garbage, right? Yeah, you are spending time, and it has no benefit for you whatsoever. There's no benefits in pretty much 90% of what you do have absolutely zero benefit. Even the food you eat, most of the time, have really no benefit. It has harm mostly. So we are trained to do that. Okay, you are accepted in this consumer system. All right, so you can homeschool your children, so you break that cycle of, you know, recreating the consumer, the working, you know, the salary slave, basically, right? You can break that cycle by homeschooling. And there, like I said, John Taylor Gatto is one of those who really talks about how the system works and why it's dangerous, okay? And also, if you follow some of those videos, sometimes they will mention different book titles that further make you understand what to do. Was it Dumbing Down of America or something? He mentioned one book. I'll try to remember, and you know, in one of the next videos I will have some of the book titles related to homeschooling and the system, how it's, you know, basically eating you up. So yeah, you're basically spending your life from kindergarten until retirement fitting into their system, right? And you know, it oh my God, I could be going on, but never mind. Let me just say one thing. Think about this. What do you do with your time when you're not working or studying? You are trying to compensate for the needs that you have, the mental needs that you have, but unfortunately, maybe not with such you know, useful things. So what you do, you are worked out, you are stressed out, and you're tired mentally, physically. So you sit and you watch TV or YouTube or whatever, you know, stupid videos that doesn't give you anything new or useful. And because you don't want to put any effort into it, you already put effort into being a good worker or a good student. So that means that you just need to refresh yourself mentally. But the thing is, the things you choose to refresh yourself mentally is also working on your mentality of being a consumer, all right? Because the fact is, most of the movies you will see is showing you certain patterns that they want you to follow, and thinking this is funny, this is scary, this is cool. Oh, I want to look cool. So what do? You copy a lot of the stuff. Your own thinking is being adapted by advertisement, and marketing is adapted by the movies you see. You know, even those people, private people who are like YouTube influencers or stuff like that, they, you know, they get, that's their job. So they want you to follow them. The more you follow them, the more maybe you buy products that they are promoting or talking about, the more money they get. All right? And some of them, they will tell you that they can give you some ideas on how to be better. All right? And they will sell something for that, you know, purpose. Okay? All right. I'm thinking I'm beating that dead horse more than I should, but okay. This is the first, and the source that I'm talking about, Tonche Lagato, Google him. There are some books, there are some videos, and this is a good place to start, because the first thing is you gotta see where your place is. There are other, you know, people that I will be talking about, people who are psychologists, people who are lifestyle consultants, image consultants, and many other people that is going to help you to unplug your mind to this indoctrination. But you need to know first, where are you? What is the purpose of your life? Do you have a purpose other than what I'm just mentioning here? That's first thing you have to do. So until tomorrow, this was a way longer video than I was planning to do. I was hoping 5-10 minutes, but you know, this is something that you really gotta understand. So I hope you are still watching until this point and you got the whole idea in. And I'm gonna post this video YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and feel free to ask some questions. That's fine. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video where I'm answering the questions that you have later today, for example, or tomorrow before I make the next video. So until tomorrow, take care. For my Muslim brothers and sisters, Ramadan Mubarak. See you tomorrow.